Hey, it's Mr. A. Today we're going to jump right into creating a ceramic coil pot. So grab a piece of clay, we're going to roll it out. Now the key thing with rolling out a piece of clay into a coil is first extending it with your two hands. Kind of roll it in your hands, make a thicker cylinder. We're going to try to roll this out. Now you may notice, take a look at this stupid little canvas I got. It's rolling around, folding up on me here. Hopefully you've got this figured out, but I definitely didn't think about it. So the thing is that it's about a little bit thicker than my thumb right now. And this is where it gets a little tough because it starts to get wobbly. If it's wobbly, that's no problem. We're actually gonna break it in half at some point. And then focus on that particular piece while it's still thick. That's gonna roll out into basically a pointer finger thickness. I mean, that's the main thing, is whenever you're building something out of coils, you don't want it too thin because we're gonna be using some of that clay to blend it together. Now the next step is to kind of create the base of this pot. So all I do, take a piece of that clay, roll it into a ball, and we're gonna flatten it out. I just use the base of my hand. Flatten it out, it's gonna be the same thickness of the coil. So we just wanna make sure that we're providing a little bit of extra thickness here because we don't want things to make it too thin, you know, when we're trying to blend things together. Now, if I'm worried about this being out of balance, I have a quick trick for you. Take your thumb and forefinger and roll it kind of like a wheel. You can kind of thicken up the edges, make it look kind of nice. But ultimately, we're gonna find something that's circular, trace it, and cut it out. I'm using a needle tool here. Make sure that you kind of trace to check the size first. Make sure it's a good size that you want. And then we're gonna cut through there with the needle tool. That's very easy. Now the thing is, just be careful when you're pulling it off. Like I use that glass, so it's kind of sticking to it. Before I move on to one of my favorite parts, we're gonna grab a glass of water and move on to starting to score and slip. But first, let's check out the potato chip tool. This thing's gonna allow us to score really quickly. Scoring creates a great surface for the clay to grab onto itself and create a secure bond. Now, check this out. We wanna make sure we're only using just a little dip of water. Not too much, we don't want to make it sloppy. So the thing is, once it's all watered up, we're going to try my favorite part, which is going to be to lay this stuff on, overlap that coil slightly, and we're going to have my favorite part, which is cut the nugget. If you look closely here, the nugget is that overlapping part that we're going to cut out. Cut on that line, but stop before we hit the base. Get rid of that. Ew, it's gross. But the perfect thing is it lines up in a perfect circle. If we score and slip that end to end, you're gonna end up with not having any overlap. You're not gonna look with one of those snaky pots. We'll talk about that later, but if you took kindergarten, you know what I'm talking about. Then last step is to blend it out. Look at my finger, I'm using my thumb for the outside. It also helps if you have any other tools available, especially for that inside. This is a really great step to take, especially if you're hoping to contain liquids or anything you don't wanna leak out. Any small little crack that you create, especially on the inside, is going to cause a perfect home for bacteria. So we want to avoid that whenever we can. Now this brings us to the end of this video, but for part 2, we're going to actually see how this comes together to create a full-on coil pot. So if you're interested, follow along. I'll have the link right up here in the right-hand corner of the screen. Follow along to video number 2 of creating a coil pot. Thanks for joining us.